Good day, everyone. Welcome back to my class. I remind you of Mr. Promise, your biology instructor. Today we are looking at microbiology. We'll look at the branches of microbiology, why microbiology is important in our ecosystem, and also if it is harmful in our ecosystem. Microbiology, like we said, is a branch of biology that studies microorganisms or microbes, tiny living organisms that cannot be seen with the naked eyes and can only be observed with a microscope. Now, in every scientific study, there are also branches. So let's quickly look at the branches of microbiology. But before we go into the branches of microbiology, let's get the full understanding of what microbiology is. Like the word micro is a Greek word which means little or tiny. And biology, of course, is the study of life. So when you put it together, it simply means the study that deals with little or tiny organisms. So if you don't want to call them microorganisms, you can call them microbes. So moving on to the branches of microbiology. In microbiology, we have the bacteriology, which is the study of bacteria. We have virology, which is the study of viruses. We have mycology, which is the study of fungi. We have protozoology, which is the study of protozoa. We have phycology or algology, which is the study of algae. And we have parasitology, which is the study of parasites. Now, let's look at the types of microorganisms. Number one is bacteria. Bacteria is a single cell prokaryotic organisms. Now, when they mean prokaryotic organisms, it means it doesn't have a well-developed cell membrane. So it is known as prokaryotic organisms. Prokaryote. Now, bacteria produce by binary fission, meaning bacteria doesn't need two organisms or two different bacteria to come together to meet. They give birth by binary fission, which is they divide themselves into two different equal shapes or the same shapes. Some bacteria are beneficial while others cause diseases. Like I said in my introduction, I said we are going to look at the benefits of microorganisms and also the disadvantage of microorganisms. So some bacteria are beneficial to humans while some are harmful. They cause diseases. Now examples of bacteria are Escherichia, or you call them the E. coli. We have the Lactobacillus, which is the vibro, and we also have the vibro cholera bacteria, which causes um, vibro cholera, that's stooling and vomiting. So this bacteria is responsible for it. Now let's look at viruses. Virus is a non-cellular organisms. They are all non-cellular because they are prokaryotic in nature. Virus can produce only inside living hosts. A virus can only produce inside a living host. So when a virus is not in a living host, it does not have the tendency to produce. It remains as a non-living. But once it comes in contact with a living host, it starts producing. Virus can cause diseases such as measles, influenza, COVID-19, HIV/AIDS. So virus is also more dangerous than bacteria. Viruses are also smaller than bacteria. Now, for example, viruses are not seen with an ordinary microscope. So for you to see a virus, you need an electron microscope for you to be able to see virus. So I want you to note that viruses only produces when they are in contact with a living host. All right. So moving on to fungi. Now, fungi are eukaryotic in nature, or they are eukaryotic organisms. Now, fungi are organisms that have a developed cell membrane. Remember, initially I told you that prokaryotic organisms are organisms that do not have a well-developed cell membrane, for instance, bacteria and viruses. But fungi is a eukaryotic organism. That means they have a well-developed membrane. Now, examples of fungi include yeast, mold, and mushroom. That's a mushroom you go to market and you buy, you prepare your soup with. They are examples of fungi. Now, examples of like molds are, let me give you an example of this mold. Most times when we finish eating and we tend not to wash our plate and we keep it for too long, those things that comes out from it are known as molds. All right, and they are known as fungi. And fungi only grows on decayed matter. Fungi do not grow on a living matter. fungi grows on a dead matter. For instance, mushroom. You cannot find mushroom on a living tree or a living plant. You can only find mushroom on a dead wood. So mushrooms grow on a dead wood. Now the usefulness of fungi. Fungi is used in production of medicine, but some fungi causes diseases such as ringworm. So those days that we are little, you see some children having ringworms on their body. These are all caused by fungi. So fungi is the causative agent of this ringworm. So moving on to protozoa. Protozoa is also a single-celled eukaryotic organism, mostly live in water or moist environment. Some causes diseases, example are plasmodium, which causes malaria. All right, and of course we know malaria. This plasmodium is being carried by a mosquito. All right, it's carried a mosquito which is known as which is the Anopheles, no, the which is known as the female mosquito, which causes malaria. So moving on to the next one, which is algae. Algae is a photosynthetic organism found mainly in aquatic environments. Now we have green algae, we have red algae. They produce oxygen and serve as food for aquatic organisms. So these ones are very, very useful to the environment. So for the fact that they are useful to the environment, some microorganisms are also harmful to the environment. Now let's quickly look at the importance of microorganisms. Beneficial uses. We use some microorganisms to in production of bread, like the yeast, in production of wine, and production of beer. So these yeast are used to produce beer, wine, and every other beverages that you know. Production of yogurt and cheese. Some bacteria are used for production of yogurt and cheese. Manufacturing manufacturing of antibiotics. For example, we have penicillin. Penicillin bacteria is used for production of antibiotics. Now we have the composition of dead plants and animals. So bacteria and other microorganisms helps in the composition of plants and dead plants and animals. While we have nitrogen fixation in agriculture. So microorganisms also help in nitrogen fixation. That's nitrogen cycle in agriculture. Sewage treatment and waste recycling. All these things are the benefits of microorganisms. Now let's look at the harmful effects of microorganisms in our society, in our environment. Causes disease in humans, animals, and plants. Spoilage of food, contamination of water and air, damage of crops and food. Now let's also look at the major scientists in biology, in microbiology. We have Antonio van Leeuwenhoek, who is the father of microbiology. First, he was the first to observe microorganisms. All right. Now we have Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur was the man who developed the germ theory. So the germ theory that we are hearing today, even in hospitals, you go, they want to do your test to know the kind of um, organism that is causing your um, that is a causative agent for your disease. So it is through the germ theory that we've been able to discover these things, and it is known as pasteurization. All right. So we also have Robert Koch, identified as bacteria that causes diseases such as tuberculosis and cholera. So he was one that identified them, the bacteria that causes diseases such as tuberculosis and cholera. So moving on, we have Alexander Fleming. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, the first widely used antibiotics. So these were the founder or the first scientists that ever dealt on microbiology. So now let's look at method of controlling microorganisms. The method of controlling microorganisms will have sterilization, disinfection, pasteurization, proper hand washing, vaccination, safe food handling, storage, and use of antibiotics. Of course, these are very, very common to us. Sterilization is mostly used in the hospital. They use it to sterilize their surgical materials. Now, when you talk about disinfection, disinfectant process is used in our homes, especially in our toilets. We use hypo, the clean to wash our toilets and our bathroom to disinfect them from microorganisms. So we also have proper hand washing. Of course, this one is very common to us. We wash our hands properly before eating, after working, and also have vaccination. Vaccination includes giving injection to little babies to prevent them from having sicknesses like measles, chickenpox, and the rest of them. All right. So application of microbiology. So microbiology, it's applied in medicine. In medicine, it is applied under diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of diseases. And in agriculture, we have biofertilizers, we have nitrogen fixation, and biological pest control. And in food industry, we have production of yogurt, cheese, bread, and fermented foods. So lastly, we have environmental science, waste decomposition, sewage treatment, and bioremediation. So these are the application of microbiology in our environment. Thank you.